morning, everyone. Welcome in to Quilt and Coffee Chat Live with Build a Quilt. I'm Diana. I'm the owner and designer of the Build a Quilt system. Let me pop that off. There we go. It's so good to be with you guys on this Friday morning. And I had so hoped that I would say on this sunny, beautiful Friday morning, we're actually getting a mix of snow and rain right now, and it's supposed to turn more into snow as the afternoon goes on. And I have a 2-hour class I'm teaching this afternoon, so fingers crossed for me that I don't get caught in ice, because I have a feeling that's what it's going to be more than snow. It's going to turn icy. Ick. But I'm so glad to have you with us. I have my my swig mug full of coffee. For Quilt and Coffee Chat Live. But of course, you can bring your mug of tea, water, juice, whatever you want to drink. But I like my coffee. So there we go. So if you are brand new to Build a Quilt, then Build a Quilt is all about patchwork that's done with the hoop of your embroidery. It is not embroidery that looks like patchwork, which is a whole nother scenario and beautiful art in its own way. But this is true patchwork. But we let our embroidery machine take care of all the precision, all the seams, all that, so that everything is precise. Down in the comments, I've left some links to some extra videos. One, our big batting video. We did a big batting video later this past year. And then I put in the link for the video for the half square triangle, the mama block of all quilting. The half square triangle gets used more than any other block in quilting. And it's a great block. In fact, this little wall quilt right behind us, all of those, except for a few just squares, are half square triangles in a couple of sizes. And what's great about them is you can change fabrics, which changes your design from one half to the other. It's a great standard block. So that video is below in the description. Go ahead and take a look at it, especially if you're brand new to Build a Quilt. And I want to welcome all of you, whether you're new or our guests that come and be with us all the time. Let's see, in fact, who's here with us today. Oh, we have our good friend Lisa from down in New Orleans. Hi, Lisa. Good. Let's see. Are you in the Eastern time zone? I don't remember if you guys switch over to Eastern time down there, if you're still Central. So you're either the end of the morning or you're at lunchtime. Either way, I hope you're having a great day, Lisa. And we have our good friend Kathy with us. Hi, Kathy. Finally caught another live. Yes, I'm so glad you could be with us today, Kathy, for sure. And so Quilt and Coffee Chat Live, folks, is not an absolute repeat of what we do on Wednesday night workshop. In fact, today we're actually going to be talking about finish quilting. I've got a couple of video clips that we're going to watch together. It's an easier way for me to show you a demonstration than trying to set up 8 or 9 cameras around here to do it in the studio at the moment. So I've got a couple of video clips I made to help us with that. We're going to watch those because it's going to help you with quilting with your embroidery machine in general, whether you're using a Build a Quilt pattern or any pattern. And we'll go over that more in a little bit. Lisa says we spring forward on Saturday. Yeah, so do we. Don't get me started about daylight savings time. I mean, really don't. I will rant for an hour plus and it will all be negative. I hate daylight savings time to the core of my being. I always have. It really affects, if I wouldn't mind it, I wouldn't care, but it really affects me physically. So next Wednesday, guys, if I'm a little grumpy on Wednesday night, you'll have to excuse me. I'll try not to be, but daylight savings time flipping over there really messes me up. Anyway, it's like when I change time zones, when I fly, I get messed up then too. My body is very attuned to a time frame. When we lived on the West Coast, it took me like 10 years to adapt to Pacific time. And so when we moved back to Illinois several decades later, it took me several years to readapt to Central time. It's totally weird. My doctors think it's weird too, but they all get it. Apparently, I'm not the only one that way. Anyway, so today I have a little, if you're here, please go ahead and sign in. We'd love to say hello. I have a little picture to show you. I showed it Wednesday night, but Last week on Wednesday night workshop, I was telling everyone that I'd really lost my mojo, my sojo, all my Joes had just left. I had been ill. You guys know I lost my voice completely for a couple weeks. Didn't have COVID, didn't have the flu, didn't have RSV, didn't have any of those nasty things. I just had something that took my voice away. And my eyes have been giving me a problem with allergies. It's been crazy. And so, I found this picture, and when I saw it, I have a real soft spot for basset hounds. So when I saw this, I thought, that's for sure. I don't know what quilt to make. So here's a cute picture of a basset hound. Yeah, isn't he adorable? Oh, I love it. If a basset puppy brought me a flower, I think that's a Gerber daisy, I would just absolutely, my heart would melt. I really am a softie at heart. I know sometimes it doesn't seem so, but I am. But I saw that picture and I thought, well, maybe that will cheer us up. All of us who have the winter doldrums, and our Sojo, our Quilt Joe is up and gone away for a while. It's probably down on vacation in NOLA with our friend Lisa down there where it's beautiful weather. Although I hear you guys have been having rain and stuff. So, and maybe that's not true this week. But I just think that picture is so stinking cute. So I chose to show it to you guys again because I really couldn't find anything I wanted to do for a new meme. But that I saw it again, this picture, and I thought that just makes me smile. So I will show it again to you all. So I hope you all find it as adorable as I do. Hi, Sue. Our good friend Sue is with us now. You're not late, Sue. Not at all. You're not late at all. We're just getting started. So that was our little thing. So if you don't know what to make, just think of this cute little basset hound or your favorite pet, maybe bringing you a flower to cheer you up. I just thought it was cute. And I will tell you guys, I am really into my gardening mode now. I've got my notebooks. You should see my kitchen. I've got my seeds piled up. I've got new grow bags I'm using. I'm going to be starting seeds on a new seed deck that's like one of those hydroponic things. And I will let you know, I'm going to be starting a new YouTube channel it's just a video journey. It's not like we do here. It's not a business thing. It's not a teaching thing, really. It's just so like when I have wins, I can share them. When I have fails, maybe we all learn something together, can learn from each other. It's called the Old Farm Gardens. So there's nothing there yet, but I'll let you know in case some of you want to go check out my very early attempts at doing some gardening videos. I just thought it would be fun. That way also I'm journaling it that way for myself so I can kind of keep up with what I'm doing. Anyway, that's to come. But I'm really totally ready for my gardening stuff. I have so much. The new greenhouse is here to be put up. We're doing a temporary one right now because later in the fall, we're going to clear and put down a pad and all to do a permanent greenhouse. I'm so excited about that. So anyway, but we are here today to talk about quilting. So Wednesday night, our main topic Wednesday night was fussy cutting. So if you've been a quilter for a long time, you know what fussy cutting is. But if you're new to quilting, fussy cutting is taking a fabric and choosing to make it the main theme of a quilt, to add that extra special something to a quilt. It truly is the one thing, the easiest thing you can do to make your quilt extra special because you can add a theme to it, things like that. So we went through that, just making them in squares, talked about putting them in the diamond in a square. We talked about different size patterns, things like that. And what I did yesterday, I took a little bit of time and I went through Wednesday night workshops video, the replay. Now, if you want to watch all of Wednesday night workshop and catch up on all the fun tips and tricks and all that we did, check out that video. It's in the live section of the channel. However, if you just want to know about the fussy cutting, like that demo portion, I cut that out and redid it as a standalone video so I can refer people. Just if you need info on fussy cutting, go watch that video because it's all it is. You don't have to watch all the other stuff. And that is now here, and it's called It's Okay to Be Fussy. So if you want to know more about fussy cutting and what we did Wednesday night, go check that out. We're working on that as a way to up our technique level in our current easiest quilt along ever. And we're going to be talking about where those blocks will go in our quilt this coming Wednesday on Wednesday workshop. See, Sue says that will be fun to watch. Oh, the gardening one, Sue? Yeah, it'll probably be hilarious to watch. I'm thinking. But yeah, it'll be fun to do. Those will be really simple videos, but yeah, it should be fun to see if I can get anything to grow here. I've been a gardener on and off my whole life, but this is the first time I've had an actual big back garden where I can really spread out and do lots of things and stuff. So, and grow organically the way I want to do it. So it'll be fun, I think. Yeah, I think it'll be fun too. I'll let you guys know more about that when I have anything up that can be watched. But so the fussy cutting was Wednesday night, and I showed you several of the fabrics so that you can see how to look at fabrics that are different size patterns when you want to fussy cut. So all of that is on that video. I also tell you how you can get our fussy cut template set, which is only $1.50 at the website. 2-inch template through 7-inch template, and I show you how to use it in that video. If you are a Quilt Lab subscriber, then go to the Quilt Lab subscription area because that template set is a free download for you guys, okay? All right, and then the other thing we talked about is these were last week's color cards for the easiest quilt along ever. Wait, I keep flipping them upside down. There we go. There we go. There they are. So we had the beautiful rainbow lorikeets, which we now know are from Australia. And we had these beautiful blossoms. And so this turned out to be my blossom block. This one was hard for me to find fabrics that I had that worked. So if you notice in this one, not everything is an exact match, but I did a video showing you how I picked these fabrics. It came out Monday or Tuesday. To talk about, if your fabrics aren't the exact color on these cards, still go ahead and use them. You'll still get that general idea. And then the lorikeets one, it turned out really good, I thought. And on this one, you can tell I did all of these fabrics that from a distance could be considered solids that read as prints, except, well, that one really looks more like a print, but all these others are could be considered solids that are prints that read as solids. And so I thought those turned out really well. So those were my two from last week. And then we picked 2 new color cards. There is a post of this over in the community section now that shows you for this coming week. These are the 2 cards that you guys picked. Really kind of light colors, kind of those muted, soft, early spring colors. And I thought, yes, those, gosh. Everything is backwards. These cupcakes, don't they look yummy? But I love those colors. I loved both of these. So I look forward to making my blocks in those this week. But what I want to talk to you guys more about today, because I'm going to try not to do our whole hour today, because Quilt and Coffee Chat Friday is not about filling up the time necessarily, but just having some chats. So if you have questions as we go, if you just want to make comments as you go, please, always nice. We don't judge here, and we make nice comments. If you're like, oh, that really stinks, I really can't stand it, let's just hold that in, okay? You guys get it, right? So we want to be encouraging to everybody. This was our February. This was the main block of our February mini quilt. That mini quilt ended up being, you could either do it 24 by 24 if you just did 4 blocks, and I'm going to show you some pictures here in a moment, some graphics. Or if you wanted to up your game a little bit, you also got a sashing set with it, and you could make it, and it ended up being like 27 and a half finished, I guess. So this was the main block. Today, we're going to talk about how we would quilt this. If you are a Quilt Lab subscriber, your free pattern for Finish Quilting is available over in the quilting area. But what I'm going to talk to you about today works for any pattern you might use if you're going to quilt with your embroidery machine, which I love. I'll be the first to admit, quilting over 55 years, I can quilt by hand pretty darn good, I should say. It's just very time consuming. But my grandma taught me and taught me well. I mean, like, I can eye a 1/4 inch from a mile away. She would not let me move on until I got my visual 1/4 inch for sewing my blocks together down like within meters of one another. They were just, she made me do them that well. So it took me a long time to learn how to quilt. But I would hand quilt with her. Every time we'd go to Grandma's house, she would have a project set aside, a quilt set aside that needed some quilting done, and she and I would sit and hand quilt. Now that took me a while because I'm a lefty, and so all of my stitches would go like in an opposite direction. So we figured out if she worked in one direction and I worked in another direction, like almost like we were working in a circle, our stitches would end up working in the same direction together. And so we would plan that out because that almost ended our quilting together right then and there because I was a lefty and she was not. I am the only lefty grandchild in the family, or in the family period, for like at least 7 generations that we know of. And so, yeah, I've always had it like a little difficult when it comes to hand stitching, but we got there. So I can hand quilt with the best of them, probably. I can do in the ditch quilting on my sewing machine, and that is not as easy as it sounds because you really need to be precise and keep your lines straight and stay in that ditch. So I can do that. But when it came to free motion quilting, I'm bad. I'm really bad at it, guys. I mean, I can do it, but it doesn't look nearly as good as it could. And I worked at it for a long time, like over a decade. I worked at doing it. And then when I figured out that with an embroidery machine, I could do my finished quilting, I was all about that because I was this close to getting a long arm. And my husband was this close to knocking down walls in our home so I could have a space big enough for it. And I learned about quilting, finished quilting with your embroidery machine, and I've never looked back. That's pretty much how I quilt everything now. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit today. So what you need when you quilt with your embroidery machine, you need a design, and usually your design in there will have digital files, and those files will have the extension for all the different domestic quilting machines or embroidery machines. So you go in and pick yours out. So like my machine uses a PES extension. So I pick that file, I put mine on a USB drive, and I plug that USB drive into my machine. I have another machine where I can send it through Bluetooth, which I love too. So that's something new in higher end machines. But you don't need that. You can do, as long as you have, for build a quilt patterns, as long as you have a 5x7 hoop, you'll be fine. And here is a big tip I want to give you. When you're quilting with your embroidery machine, especially if you're quilting in smaller sections, use the smallest hoop that you need to get that pattern in. You may be moving it around more, but you are going to get better and more precise placement, and your design overall is going to look better, because when you use a bigger hoop and you're doing a smaller section at a time and just moving it around in the hoop for quilting, you end up with slippage, and it will knock, trust me when I tell you, it'll knock your pattern off each and every time. And sometimes as much, by the time you get to the end, you're off by 2 inches, which is quite a bit. So smallest hoop that you need. Do you need a magnetic hoop? No. Do I use a magnetic hoop? Oh, absolutely. They are much easier, but you don't need one. You can use a regular embroidery hoop like you see back there that have the 2 pieces that fit into one another and screw together on the bottom. You can absolutely use those. And I did probably for 6 or 7 years until I found magnetic hoops. And now I use magnetic hoops all the time, because the nice thing is, the bottom hoop stays attached to your machine. You just lift off the magnetic top hoop, move your piece around, put your template back on, and we're going to talk about that in a moment, and then move on. And so it's really, magnetic hoops are great. Your brand machine may make them. A lot of brands make their own magnetic hoops now. I use a generic one that makes them for everybody. You guys have heard of this product line, I'm sure, Dime. Great magnetic hoops. I use those for quilting. I don't use them really for my other embroidery so much unless I have a thick piece of embroidery that I'm doing, but I use them for my quilting all the time. But you use whatever you have. Don't think you have to run out and buy a magnetic hoop to do your finished quilting. So you need your hoop. You do not need stabilizer. Isn't that nice? No stabilizer needed because your quilt sandwich, and for those of you that are new, a quilt sandwich is your quilt top, your batting, that's the stuff that goes in between that makes it that warm and cuddly blanket or quilt. Shouldn't call it a blanket. I've gotten a lot of corrective email when I've slipped and said blanket before, but truly, it's a quilt is a type of blanket. Let's be honest. And then, so you need your hoop, no stabilizer, because your quilt top, your batting, and your backing fabric make a quilt sandwich. So the top and the bottom fabrics are sandwiching that batting. That's why we get the name sandwich. And it's thick enough that you don't need a batting. So you don't have to worry about taking it off, anything like that. Yay, we like that, right? We really like that. So hoop, pattern, quilt sandwich, and thread. And in your pattern, when you buy a Build-A-Quilt Finish Quilt pattern, or when you get one like as a part of your subscription for Quilt Lab, you get a template in there. I will not buy a pattern that doesn't come with a template, because a template is what gives you your exact placement so that your needle goes into the right space and your design is created. And I'm going to show you that in a video here in just a sec. Kathy says she loves her magnetic hoops. I do too, Kathy. I'm right there with you, my friend. So let's talk about thread for a minute. Let's talk about bobbin thread. If I'm making a small piece that's going to hang on a wall or sit flat on a table, I use a regular old white bobbin. I don't care what my backing fabric is, because nobody's really going to ever see it. Now, if I'm going to give it as a gift, I'll do one of two things. And these are the other things you can do with bobbins. You can use a bobbin color that matches your backing fabric. Or if you are using my favorite type of thread to quilt with is a variegated thread that has all the colors from my quilt in it, I will use that in my bobbin too, because then you get this beautiful variegated color design on the back of your quilt. So a regular bobbin is fine, one that matches your backing fabric, or a variegated. Now, for thread for the top thread, always either, if you want your quilting to stand out, choose a bright color from within your fabric. If you want it to sink in and you want your piecing to be what's really shining, and that's what I suggest for this, because this block is kind of a fancy block in that it has almost a three-dimensional look to it. And you've done a lot of piecing to get here. It was easy piecing with Build-A-Quilt, but you've done a lot of piecing. I really want this beauty to show. And so I would use either a very neutral color thread for my quilting so it sinks in and the piecing shows, or I would try and find a variegated thread that has these colors in them, or one that's like all different light shades of green, maybe green to ivory or something. That way it's going to sink in, but occasionally you get these little pops of color that you can see in your lighter colors. And what that does is it gives your fabric and your quilt a real depth, a real richness to it, a real comfortableness to it. It's really a beautiful way to add a bit of artistry to your quilt simply by using variegated thread. And I absolutely love it. So those are the kinds of threads that you can use for when you're doing your finished quilting. And really, On your sewing machine, if you are someone that does free motion quilting on your machine, those same things go for thread there too, for bobbin and top thread there as well. Because you still need a bobbin, you still need a top thread. If you're going to hand quilt, and there are some folks that still do, you're going to use one color thread because you're making the stitches. It's making your top stitch and your bottom stitch. So you'll want one color for the whole kit and caboodle. Alrighty, so now let's talk about the template. This is the template design for the quilting that is the free design for Quilt Lab subscribers. It's cut out. It's got an arrow here that points up. So I know my template, I know this is the top of the template. And it has crosshairs on it. Your templates from us will always have crosshairs on it so that you can pinpoint your needle right in the center when you start. And then you know that your placement is going to be perfect within that area. So let's go ahead, and I want to show you some things and a couple of video clips. I want to show you, this is the 4 patch version of this mini quilt. And what we did with this mini quilt, what makes it a little extra special, is that you go from light around to dark. So you really do a gradation of color in this quilt. And I did this one in pink because it was February. I was kind of in that Valentine's-y heart kind of mode. And I think that's beautiful. That one ends up being a 24-inch mini quilt. Great for if you have a small, I have a small space between the door that comes in from my laundry room and the hallway that is roughly like 30 inches wide. So it's 24-inch, 27-inch little mini quilts hang there and look beautiful. They add that extra something. And that's what this mini quilt is great for. Or you could even do this mini quilt and turn it into a pillow if you wanted to. So that is the 4-way. But if you decided that you wanted to up your game, this is what we call the full version. It has the sashing in it. The sashing this way and the sashing this way. And kind of like unfocus your eyes a little bit and see what happens when you add your sashing. You end up with 9 little 8-point stars all the way across here and here, here and here, within those folded stars. I love this. I absolutely love this mini quilt. And you can see mine I'm doing in these colors because I'm trying to think outside the block. I would normally have done it in these types of colors. You guys know those are my favorites. But this year is all about color and thinking outside the box. So I'm trying to do those, my pieces in colors that I wouldn't normally do. So those are the 2 versions that you can make. Now I want to share with you, the first video is a quick little video on excuse me just a second, I clicked the wrong button, on hooping your quilt. I used just this block. So we're going to think of this block as the whole quilt so that it will fit into the picture. But then I'm going to show you how you use this for placement in the second video. So let's watch this first one. And this one is about hooping.
Okay, everybody, now we're going to do the hooping so that you can see how that works. Now, I am using just one of the squares so that you can see the whole thing in this camera. Yours is, of course, going to be double wide and double tall, and so will mine be when I do my finished piece. But it's easier for you to see the hooping and pretend like this one big square is the quilt itself. Now, in this pattern, we are quilting every half square triangle in every one of our pieces. We're not quilting in here, 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 or here. My thought in quilting is the quilting pattern itself is meant to hold your quilt sandwich together. I don't like when quilting overcomes the look of the piece. And because this is such a beautifully pieced block, I wanted some minimalist quilting for this. So we're only quilting in every half square triangle. And for anyone who is a beginner quilting with your embroidery machine, it's going to make it super easy for you. Now, my first tip is to use a hoop that is the smallest hoop you have that will fit that half square triangle in there. And for me, that's a 6x6. That's the hoop size I like to use when I'm quilting 5x5. But you should be able to use your 5x7 for this as well, because a 5-inch width pattern will fit in a 5-inch width, a 5x7 width hoop. Now, as you can see, I'm using a magnetic hoop. You may have a magnetic hoop from your brand or one that looks different. If you don't have a magnetic hoop, you do not absolutely have to have one. You can use your regular hoop. You're just going to put your bottom hoop underneath, your sandwich, and then your top hoop, and then you'll adjust it down at the bottom. I recommend that when you do that, loosen up your top hoop or the hoop that goes in as much as you can without it falling apart. It'll just make it easy to adjust. Yeah, it's a lot of, you're going to have to do a lot of adjusting, but trust me, it'll be worth it. So here I have my quilt sandwich, top, batting, and backing underneath, and I've got it in my hoop. Now there's the next part of this video is going to be about centering up on your machine so that your design starts when it needs to be. And the first thing you need for that is your template that's in your pattern pack. Once you get it, you're going to cut it around all the sides, and this is going to fit in perfectly. Now when you put your template down, I suggest that you look at this inner edge and make sure that it's not trailing into the next part. So do you see how it's laying just right to the inside of the seam between these two? That's where you want it. And it will be like that all the way around. And if it comes out just a little bit into the seam, that's not a problem. And it might be like literally like that much, a very tiny amount. That's fine. That will be perfect. Now, what you can do if you don't have a sticky back template paper for printing your template, sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. For these small patterns, I don't really, because it's so easy not to. What I do is I take a piece of Scotch tape and I tape this down here on this edge and maybe over on this edge, just so it will stay. Or I put a piece of tape underneath it. But don't put a piece of tape, if you do that, where you make the little loop of tape and put it under. Don't put it here in the center. Otherwise, you're going to get glue on your needle. Put it, say, up here and down here. So this is just for centering. Once we get over to the machine, then I will show you how you will bring your needle right into this center point. And once you have it into this center point, you remove your template and then you quilt that area. Once you've quilted this area, then you take off your... If you have a magnetic hoop, you can typically just release it and take off the top hoop, move your quilt around without taking off your bottom hoop. If you're using a regular hoop, you'll have to remove it from the machine, take it to your flat surface, remove your hoop, and readjust it to the next one of your half square triangles, whichever one is next in your rotation. Okay, so that is hooping. Now we're going to go back, and then we have another video coming up where we're going to show you how to actually center that up with the needle on your machine.
Okay, everybody, so that is hooping. Hooping's really simple, but if you follow those guidelines for placing the template and all, you're going to end up getting it in the right place each and every time. Now, I mentioned something in that video. I mentioned a sticky back template paper. A sticky back template paper is something that will go through your printer, and you can print your template on it. Then you cut it out, and because it is a low tack glue on the back of it, it's meant for fabric. and you can lay it on your thing. It's not going to move around at all. And then you just peel it off and you can reuse it. In fact, typically when I use them, if the sticky goes away, that's when I pull out the Scotch tape and then just put a little bit. And I'm not talking, when I said Scotch tape, I wasn't talking about like taping down the whole edge. If you can see on this piece, there's that little bit. Can you see that little bit of tape that's right there, Scotch tape? I just put like a little tab of it from here onto a little bit of the fabric on each side so that it kind of holds it in place, because it really is a quick process. It doesn't need to be on there more than a minute probably. Alrighty, so does anybody have any questions about hooping? If you do, put them in the comments. Sue, I want that picture of your piece pre-quilted. I really want to see it pre-quilted because that will really show off, I think, all the beautiful piecing you did. And then once you quilt it, if you want to send me that picture too, I'd love to see it and show that as well. So now I have another short video for us to watch on the placement. Let me just wait a second. Somebody's, Sue, you sent it. Thank you. I will see that this afternoon. Rose says, love your peach and aqua quilt over your shoulder. Oh, thanks, Rose. Very simple, simple, simple. One little square, one little half square triangle, and one bigger half square triangle. It is so simple to make. If that would be like a my first build a quilt scenario. If that's a pattern you guys would like to see as a my first build a quilt that would come with a quilting pattern with it, the whole thing, like we did a my first build a quilt last year, let me know. I'll be happy to put one together for us. So this is the Finish Quilting placement video. Let's give that a watch.
Okay, everybody, here I am at my machine. I have my quilt sandwich in my hoop. I have my template on here, but as you can see, it's not right in the center there. That's okay. Using the arrows on my machine, I'm going to now move this until I get to that center line, and then I'm going to move it up. Whoops, I pressed the button a little too quickly there.
It was
hard to hold the camera and get this right. Let me bring that over. Okay, and now I need to bring it up just a little bit. Now I'm going to lower my foot, and I can see that it looks like I'm going to be there. So, whoops, I know that you couldn't see that. So I've lowered my foot. Now I'm going to lower my needle. I don't have my thread threaded at this point.
That's your pro
And the
tip.
reason I don't thread yet is because then I can test where my needle is without actually making a stitch with the thread and having to cut it. So I'm going to put my needle all the way down, and it is, I know it's hard to see, but it is perfectly right there in the center. So now I know that this template is lined up on my square of my quilt exactly where I need it to be. Now I'm going to bring my needle up, and I'm going to raise my foot, and now I can remove this template, and then I can just again put my foot down and then click my go button, and it will do the pattern right in this area. Once this is done, I'll remove it from the hoop and I will just move on to my next area. But that is how easy it is to line up with a template and the crosshairs.
Okay, so the one thing I forgot to tell you is before you put it, before you hit the go button, make sure you've threaded your thread by then. So that's my pro tip for you guys on when you're lining up for placement. Don't thread, because if you put your needle down and it goes all the way in, you get like a little half stitch there and you have to take it out. Now, can you pull your threads through and then tuck them from behind like we do with other quilting methods? You can. However, especially for small pieces, I don't recommend it. The knots are so tiny when you quilt with your embroidery machine, they kind of sink themselves from the back. So I don't ever worry about it. I just let it go. So that is how easy. Let's see. Oh, Sue says your quilt's very pretty. Thank you, Sue. That's very kind of you. So this is the quilt that Rose and I was talking about. I did this probably 7 years ago, but I wanted something springy in here. So this, I think what I'll do, you know, this year is also about using our Build a Quilt combo set, which gives us the 6 most often used quilt segments, like the half square, triangle, the square, the diamond in a square, the split rail, the flying geese, all of those. This could easily be done with the combo set. So I will put this together as a Build a Quilt combo set pattern. How's that? Do you guys like that idea? I will do that because if you have your combo set, you really don't need to purchase another pattern when you can do this one with what you already have, right? So I will make that note to myself to do that. So Build a Quilt combo peach quilt. We'll just call it that because I'm going to look at this message later this evening when I'm home and I won't know if I don't write it down. So Rose is saying, oh, great, Rose. I'm glad that works for you. So let's get back to our template placement. Template placement, guys, is the one thing that really allows you to do finish quilting with ease on your embroidery machine. And there's nothing like it. And I set the stitches on Build a Quilt. Here's one thing. Be careful when you're out there buying patterns online. There are some beautiful ones, but if it says bean stitch or double stitch or triple stitch, stay away from them. Those really aren't going to give you a quilted look. They are really more of an embroidery idea. Lots of people did them for a long time because the people that were making them really didn't know what quilting was so much. And so if you see one that goes forward, back, forward, back, forward, back, forward, back, forward, back, you're using a lot of thread. You're making a really thick stitch. And to be honest, now it's a little bit your choice, but I really don't think those looks look good. And they make your quilt very tight, very hard to move. Lisa says, yes, Lisa, I'm guessing you want that quilt design. Okay. If it's something else you're saying yes to, you can let me know. So you want to make sure that your quilt design is basically just a run stitch. Starts at one end, goes around. Some might occasionally stop and do a restart, but they're not doubling back on themselves a lot. If they double back a little bit on an edge to get to a new place, that's okay. But the main pattern should be a run stitch. And so also the thing I like to check is to make sure that the stitch length is at least 3 millimeters. Because if you use something that is smaller, some designs when you get them are like a 2 millimeter stitch. Those are too tight. They're going to give you a really tight bunchy quilting. It's going to pull your quilt in, and your quilting should really look like you've done it by hand. And a 3 or a 3.5, is it centimeter or millimeter? I think it's millimeter. I'm so off on my measurements today. I've got gardening measurements in my brain now. But that wider stitch length is going to give you a much more natural, much more hand quilted look, but it's going to have the sturdiness of having been done by machine and the ease of having been done by the machine as well. Kathy says, yes, the quilt behind you. Okay, folks, I got that message. It'll be coming. So your patterns always need this. Again, if you're a Quilt Lab subscriber, you can get this star pattern right now. It's kind of I created it to kind of look like this a little bit. So when you do all 4 pieces here in the center, you get an interesting design as well. Here's the other thread question. Here's my other pro tip for thread. If you like that hand-stitched look on your quilts, find yourself a cottonized polyester thread. Still polyester, but it's kind of like a brushed polyester. It can be called cottonized, or some people just use cotton thread. It's okay to use cotton thread in your embroidery machine. Did you know that? I know we're so into polyesters and rayons, and typically for embroidery, you want those because the colors are so saturated and beautiful. But for quilting, you can use cotton thread and it looks gorgeous on your quilts. But a cottonized or brushed polyester looks, I'm telling you, I had to call a company once because I did not believe I wasn't working with cotton thread. And they said, no, ma'am. They ma'amed me. Oh, they said, no, ma'am, it is not cotton. It's a cottonized or brushed polyester. If you can find those, you'll get the strength of polyester and the beauty of cotton all in one. That's my other pro tip for you guys. Okay, so that design is available, but these techniques work with any quilting pattern you use with your embroidery machine or any quilting that you're going to do on your sewing machine too. Because really, if you're going to freehand, I found the one thing that helped me with free motion on my sewing machine is if I started with a template to at least get me in the right general area. And I found the easiest way, and this is why another reason I love embroidery on my embroidery machine is because I can do sections of it. That's the other thing I want to talk about, and then we're going to wrap up for the day. This quilt has been quilted minimally because I don't want everything covered and have all of that beautiful patchwork covered over. So I've chosen you're only doing these half square triangles. I know it seems like, oh, you're not doing it. Trust me, it'll be okay. It'll be beautiful in the end. If you have any questions about that quilting when you're doing it, if you're a Quilt Lab subscriber and you're using the pattern that is available to you in the area now as one of your free downloads or another pattern, let me know. Send me a message over at support@sewincommon.com and I'll be happy to help you out if I can. If it's not my pattern, I'll probably have to ask you some questions, but I'll be happy to help you out to the best of my ability. This will stay up so you can rewatch those videos. Those two videos I showed you, I will probably put them together into one single video so you don't have to watch through everything again, kind of like I did with Wednesday night's fussy cutting. But if you need to contact me, please do so at support@sewincommon.com. It has been great to be with you all today. I don't have a question of the week for us tonight. Sue, you were our question of the week winner Wednesday, but you had clicked off right as I was saying your name. I think I've seen an email that you got. I went ahead and sent you your $5 off gift card. I think you got that. If you didn't, please let me know. But we will be back on Wednesday for Wednesday workshop. We're going to delve into the placement more of our easiest quilt along ever with these fussy cut blocks. We're going to talk about what to do if you don't want a fussy cut. If you want to keep it at the most base simple level because you're brand new to build a quilt or any kind of quilting, we'll talk about that as well. And probably have some more stuff. Now, Monday is the new March pattern, the new mini quilt pattern. It's smaller. It's going to be what I consider a true mini quilt, but it will be out Monday the 10th. And this I announced Wednesday, and I'll tell you guys right now, from now on going forward, all of the monthly patterns for Quilt Lab will come out on the 10th of the month. I need that extra time because of some things that have happened that I need to do a few different things now in my life. And so nothing health related. Everybody's good. But I need those extra few days at the beginning of the month. So by the 10th of the month, that pattern will come out and the new one will come out Monday. It will have the free full how-to video with it, the whole 9 yards. All right, everybody. Let's see if we have any other questions. Yes, you got it, Sue. Thank you. You're very welcome. You're very, very welcome. If you want to find our patterns, our website is mybuildaquilt.com. That's also where our blog is. I need to get myself together and write a new blog post, but that is where all of that is. If you subscribe at the website, all that does is that actually allows you to get notifications when I'm going to post something. If I send something out that you need to know about or whatever, you guys will see it first. If you've subscribed to the website. Okay. All right. So mybuildaquilt.com. Please like, subscribe, and share our channel. That's how our group has grown to be so overwhelmingly large. And I just love it. You all mean the world to me. I want you to truly know that. I hope you all will have a great weekend. Keep your fingers crossed that I'm not going to walk out to ice now, because I see by this little gauge over here, it's still snow rain mix, but it's getting colder, which makes me a little nervous. But keep your fingers crossed that I don't have to deal with ice. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for being with me. As always, quilt life beautiful, and hope to see you all on Wednesday for Wednesday night workshop. Bye, everybody. Have a great rest of your day and your weekend.